Welcome back to my channel. This week we are making vegan breakfast sausages. These are meatless, maple flavored sausages made with all the classic sausage seasonings, just without the meat. Instead, we'll be using TVP, aka textured vegetable protein. It's a bit of a mouthful. I'll refer to it as TVP. You can find this at most health food stores. You can definitely find it online. I'll leave some links down below. It's relatively inexpensive, and all that it is defatted soy flour. Oh yeah, I didn't know what that was either. It's basically just if you take a soybean, you grind it down, you boil it a little, you process it, and you get the defatted soy flour. This is actually surprisingly high in protein. 1/4 cup of it provides 12 grams. So these breakfast sausages not only are a flavorful addition to breakfast, they're actually a good source of protein and can really balance out your plate. So let's get cooking. This water just came to a boil. You can also boil 1 cup of water on the stove. I just like using my kettle because it's so much quicker. I am going to measure out just 1 cup of water. Remember, it's really hot, so make sure to use a heat-proof container if you're doing it this way. Better than bouillon's like my new best friend. It's such an easy way to add so much flavor, and you save so much money because you don't have to buy those boxes of veggie broth, which aren't even that flavorful. I'm just gonna use the recommended amount, which would be about 1 teaspoon-ish for 1 cup. You can't really go wrong here. If anything, it'll be too salty. So I'll put this in here, and then I'll pour in my hot water. This bouillon does mix best with hot water. Now we're gonna add the textured vegetable protein. Now what we're doing here is rehydrating it. Make sure to mix it all together. So we're just gonna set this aside for 5 minutes, and you can gather the rest of your ingredients while you just let this hydrate. Now if you're doing this on the stove, once that water is boiling, make sure to turn it off, take it off the heat, and then add the TVP and let that rest. We're making 2 flax eggs. So this is 2 tablespoons ground flaxseed. I'm mixing it with 6 tablespoons water. That's 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons. And I'll whisk this together. We're gonna let this rest for just 5 minutes, so you can do this immediately after hydrating the TVP. If at this point you're thinking, what does TVP taste like? It's a blank slate. It really doesn't taste like much of anything. If anything, it has a slight soy flour, but the spices that you add to it are what it's going to taste like, and that's why for this recipe we are adding a ton of spices. 2 tablespoons nutritional yeast. This is for cheesiness and depth. 1/2 teaspoon salt and 1/2 teaspoon black pepper. 2 tablespoons chickpea flour. Now if you're new to chickpea flour, this just adds a little bit of cheesiness, and it also acts as a binder. 1 teaspoon garlic powder and 1 teaspoon onion powder. 1 teaspoon sage. This is a classic seasoning for sausage. And 1 teaspoon fennel. This is another classic sausage seasoning. I'm doing just 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. You can add more if you want some spicy sausages. 1 tablespoon of tamari to make it gluten-free. You could use soy sauce if you have that on hand. And just 1 tablespoon of maple syrup adds that light maple flavor, just a little bit of sweetness. I'm also adding in 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. This is to emulate the fattiness of sausage. This isn't all of the ingredients, but I want to mix everything together just to make sure it's well combined. The heat of the TVP should melt that coconut oil pretty easily. As you can see, the hydrated TVP really has this ground, meaty consistency. It's pretty amazing. And all it is soybeans. What in the world? Now for the binding ingredients. So we are using those 2 flax eggs. And this is 1/2 cup of oat flour. All I did was take 1/2 cup of rolled oats and put them in the blender and blend them into a relatively fine flour. They don't have to be super fine. A little bit of chunk is okay. Add that in, and we'll just fold to combine it. So it should be a relatively wet mixture. You don't want it to be soupy, but you don't want it to be crumbly and falling apart. If you find that it's way too wet, you can't hold form at all, then you can add in an extra tablespoon or 2 of oat flour. Now, once you have that well combined, you're gonna look at that and say, that's not meat. That's what I say at least. I mean, pretty convincing. At this point, we have this all mixed together, so what I'm going to do is put it in the fridge for 10 minutes. This allows the TVP to further take in those liquids and solidify. It also helps it to cool a little so that it holds its shape better. I have this cast iron skillet heating over medium. You can use any kind of large skillet though. And I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon coconut oil. We'll do a 1/4 cup for each patty. This makes a total of 8 patties. So it's really just easiest if you use a 1/4 cup scoop. And then put it in your nice and clean hands and pat it into a patty shape. The thinner, the better for these. That'll get the best texture. As you can see, it holds together quite well. Put it on that hot oil. And we'll cook these for 3 minutes on each side. It'll take 3 to 4 minutes for these to become golden brown on medium heat. This allows the inside to cook and it also gets the outside nice and golden. Time for a bite. Oh my gosh. That's a darn good flavor. If you do prefer to make these without maple syrup, you completely can. That way they'd be really good if you want to use them with lunch or dinner, like in a pasta or anywhere you'd have a more savory sausage. They're also really good on breakfast sandwiches. You can crumble them up, you can include them in a breakfast casserole. The options are endless, and I really hope you love this recipe as much as I do. These do freeze really well. You can freeze them raw or cooked. For example, here is our raw frozen sausage patty. It's just gonna take an extra minute to thaw on the pan, cook it the exact same way. Now this is one that's been frozen cooked. You can pop this in the microwave, thaw it like that, or you can throw it on the stove, cook it for about a minute or 2. And there you have it, folks. If you want more recipes like this, please let me know in the comments. I love making these fake meats, faux meats, meat analogs, whatever you want to call them. I'd be happy to do some more experimenting and get some recipes to you, so let me know if you have any requests down below. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new here. I share new vegetarian recipes every single week on this channel and over on my website at cozypeachkitchen.com. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see y'all next week.